I've had a lot of mixed reviews that I've read and watched online about these, that these are just too dense of a soil for the seedlings to really take and do well. So we're gonna try it out, we're gonna experiment some this year, but the seeds that we've got, go ahead and hand them to me. We've got beans, which I plan on making a little bit of a trellis or something for them to climb up, a gourmet blend of lettuce, sunflowers, carrots, what are these?
Cucumbers.
And we're gonna do some jalapenos.
And lettuce.
That's cabbage. And cantaloupe.
And some
Some of these, yep, some peppers. Some of these were grabbed off the shelves without me knowing.
corn too.
For example, eggplant. I don't know why we have eggplant. All right, what's step one? Water them. So we're gonna put water on them, and we're gonna take turns. We just are deciding to use a cup for the kids instead of the hose to try and avoid putting too much water in. But we're gonna put the water in, and we're gonna watch these. I think it's compressed peat, but we're gonna put it in and have them grow up. Yep, good job. Put them back in their little containers. So that's step one, is we're gonna fill these, get the soil nice and moist, watch them as they grow here. They're bigger. All right, Sissy's turn.
My turn. Here, Sissy, make sure they get water on all these guys.
There we
Keep
go.
on going.
Yep.
I'm gonna.
So I'm not quite sure how big these are supposed to get. We've never started seeds. Last year we sowed directly into the ground, and it was a complete failure for most of the plants that we put in. Most of the seedlings didn't even make it through the stony, thick soil that we had out there. So we are starting the seeds indoors. We are going to use a grow light because where we're doing it is actually in the basement and doesn't have good enough readily access to full sun. So you're gonna use your pinky to do it? Okay. All right, watch out. You got your pinky. Take your seed and drop it down in. Drop it down in there. And then gently cover back up that soil. You can use your fingers. You can gently push it back over like that.
Right on my face.
Yeah, just like that. So about 1/4 of an inch down into the soil. What I had done just a minute ago with the kids is I took the end of a pencil and I poked that down in the center to make the hole for the seed.
Ta-da!
And then I'm going to drop the seed in, and I can either use my finger or I can use the pencil to gently not push down the soil on top of it, but just cover it back up. So far we've got these 3 done. I would just use your finger. Good. Let's do another one. We gotta do this one. You're hot. I'm gonna run a little experiment. I'm going to use these organic seeds that I picked up from our hardware store in town. I'm gonna do the first 2 rows, those seeds, and then a row of seeds from sweet peppers that we just got from the grocery store. I saved the seeds, dried them out inside, and then bagged them up over the winter. I just wanna see, is there a better yield for one or the other? Is it the same? Would it be more cost effective for someone trying to grow their own food at home to just buy a few from the store versus, a seed packet, which can cost, anywhere from, $2 to $4 to $5, depending on where you're at and what you're getting. Or if you can just buy a few of them at home, you're already going to eat those peppers and then grow them at home yourself. So all of these little seed starter things, I have sown 1 seed into them, except for the carrots, and I think it was the lettuce. They recommended doing mounds. If you're doing direct sow, they were in the instructions was saying that they want you to do anywhere from 2 to 4 seeds per mound. But because these are so small, I only did a max of 2 seeds. I might have to thin them out later. I don't know. I'm kind of experimenting. Again, we did our direct sow last year, complete failure. So, it can't get any worse than that. Okay, so here is the start of our seed starting setup. I've got all the seeds sown into our little mini greenhouse, which honestly, if you don't want to invest in one of these containers or you need more like mini greenhouses, you can use takeout boxes, to-go boxes that just have this dark bottom and clear top. I mean, you could do that too. We have this old shelf that I got from my parents that they had, you know, as long as I can remember. I just bought this GoPro 4D light from a local hydroponics store. I don't really know much about them. Just throwing it on the ground here. They said that this will take them to maturity to where I can transplant them, but it wouldn't like fruit. So it doesn't have enough of the spectrum to grow them to where I would be able to just grow them inside. I'm gonna have to transplant them out, but it's good enough that I can, you know, start them and then bring them up to transplant size. So I'm going to hang this from the ceiling. We've got some metal I-beams up there. Obviously I'll plug it in and it'll start really close. So once I see those seedlings pop up in the next, you know, 7 to 10 days, I'm gonna need this grow light for sure hung up and in place so that they can start, you know, growing and getting their leaves and those sorts of things. It's cooler down here, so I'm not sure if I should have something underneath it to keep the soil warmer. Like I said, this is my first time ever growing anything inside. That bulb is really expensive. It's the full fixture, so it's the bulb, it's the light. I mean, it's a LED, and it came with brackets where I can hang it. Like it'll have, like I can put a clip on it. But it was like $160 or something like that. And I'm wondering if there is a more cost-effective way of doing this with like something from a hardware store. So I'm gonna go explore the hardware store. I'm not out of the return window yet. I almost am. So what I need to do is go look into that. And because if I can buy multiple lights and they do the same thing, have the same lumens and the same spectrum in the kelvins, I might exchange it, or I might keep this. I don't know, and then experiment, see which one works better in the future. But for now, this is what I have. This is what we're gonna try and work with. Okay, so it's day 4 and I've already failed. So I didn't expect some of these to germinate as quickly as they did, and they're not looking so hot. We've got some of them popping through. I don't think any of my peppers are yet, but I need to get this light hung right now, because if not, there's no way those little seedlings are going to make it. These seedlings really snuck up on me because I just checked them and watered them yesterday and they were not here. So they popped up out of nowhere. I'm not a fan of how I have this propped up right now. I just have some random things from one of my holiday bins just propping the light up. I'm not sure if this is even close enough. I might even consider like setting it on the rim of this container like that. And the problem with that is that the light's not spreading far enough, so no, I think I'm gonna keep it on propped up. Day 8, and we've got some more growth on our seedlings. These guys are really taking off, but the problem is, however the light's positioned, they're getting kind of leggy. Like, look at the way they're stretching towards the light. That can create leggy plants. So I'm hoping that I can get this light suspended a little bit higher, and maybe that will spread the light more evenly, and that will eliminate that issue. I did find this great little find on Amazon. It is a houseplant mister, so I can mist the plants without overwatering them. This is glass bottle. The only downfall is that this is like a cheapo kind of plastic that the sprayer is made from, and I suspect it could break really easily. It's day 10 and I've got a few sunflowers that are popping up. So we've got this guy here, obviously doing quite well, and then the 2 behind it are just starting to pop up. I've got a good amount of carrots growing, but unfortunately one of them got a little bit leggy and kind of fell over, so I'm not sure if that one's going to make it. And then we've got some decent germination. Nothing from our peppers yet. But the peppers themselves, it says that it could take 10 to 21 days for seedlings to emerge at 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and definitely not that warm in here, so we'll see how much longer for those to start to pop up. I'm doing some learning. It's been a while since I've actually like sat and read a book to learn anything, which is really bad. But I'm sitting here and realizing I already messed up my seedlings. So when the seedlings popped through and I could see some seed leaves, I put that grow light on. I turned it on. Forgot that it's not supposed to be left on 24 hours. It's supposed to be like the sun, anywhere from 12 to 14 hours. Leave it on, then shut it off to give the plant some time to rest. So I'm going to start that tonight and hopefully didn't cause any kind of issues. I'm hoping also that I didn't keep the soil a little bit too damp. I kind of overwatered them the other day, so I've been holding off on watering them, and I'm going to start using a spray bottle to better control the amount of water that I put on the plants themselves. I'm also wondering, because I'm reading through this, and obviously this is an older book, and there's all these different opinions and different ways to do it, and everyone has their own way of doing things. But this one was saying that to conserve moisture and retain heat at night is to use a mini greenhouse. So I'm wondering, am I supposed to be putting the lid back on at night when the light's off? I'm not sure. For now, I'm going to leave it off now that some of them have sprouted. And just kind of see what happens. This is going to be an experiment that's lifelong until I perfect how I like it, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. I might change it every single year that I do it just to see what happens. Day 11, and look at these guys go. Unfortunately, this one kind of flopped over, so I'm not so sure how well it's going to do in the long run. I had to move the light up just a hair because this guy's overachieving over here. But the sunflowers, it's so fun to look underneath them and see all of their roots.
Can I see?
Leave it to Ohio weather to go from 80 degrees to frost warning overnight. I had my AC on one day because it was getting up to 80 degrees in the house. And then I had to kick on my heat last night so that we weren't overly chilly. Thankfully, our seedlings are tucked away in our nice warmer basement, so we don't have to worry about those dying because of the frost. It is day 17, and as you can tell, my mammoth sunflowers have really taken off, and all of them have started. They just haven't broke ground. I'm not sure. Uh-oh, his little root snapped off. What's taking them so long? I've got this popping through here. I'm not quite sure if we've got some fungus growing there on that one, because we've got that white in it. There are all kinds of plants growing here. I'm guessing that this row probably won't have anything pop through. Because this is what I remember to be corn, and it should have been in these 2 rows, and I've got double plants in those ones. So I think I did some mistakes when planting them. These are our peppers. I've yet to see any roots coming out of the bottom, no signs of them breaking top, so I'm not sure if it's just that they're taking a little bit longer to grow, but this is what we've got so far. As you can tell, the plants are quickly growing, and I even need to bring up the light a little bit more. The light was down here to begin with, and we've slowly been inching it up just with props on each side, but that became problematic as these grew taller and it wasn't overly stable. I was afraid that they were going to fall and the light was going to fall. So Mike built this wonderful contraption using some, these are the clamps that came with the light, some of these quick connects, a couple pulleys, and then some rope. So we've got a pulley. It's connected at the ceiling, connected with another pulley up at the top there. And when I want to adjust, which I will here in a little while, I'll untie, pull on the string, and it'll adjust the light up. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to adjust that light. You might have to excuse Charlie in the background. He keeps crowing all day long and will not stop. So if he crows, sorry, but I have our seedlings out here to start hardening them off. What this does is it takes my plants that were grown in their nice, comfy indoor environment, protected from harsh weather, sun, rain, those sorts of things, wind, and it's starting to get them acclimated to being outside. This process can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days depending on the seedlings. So I probably will do it for about 7 days, where I'm gonna bring the seedlings out for an hour today, and it's under shade, so we've got a roof above us, so there is no direct sun. It is significantly warm today, but they're gonna be out here for about an hour, and then I'm gonna take them back inside. And for the next couple of days, I'm gonna start gradually increasing that time by an hour or so each day. And then after about 3 or so days, what I'll do is start introducing them to dappled sunlight. So putting them underneath the tree where some of the sun rays are coming through, to eventually they'll be outside all day long, in eventually maybe in the sunshine too, just so that the leaves have a chance to get a little bit, you know, durable. I don't know what the right term is there, but get used to being outside. They'll be able to regulate and not lose the moisture in their soil or their leaves as quickly. This is going to take me a couple of days, but the goal is to, in a week, have these out and in the soil. We've got our sunflowers here. These are our mammoth sunflowers, and they've got a good start to them from our melons and beans. I think we've got some cucumbers in there, carrots, corn. Peppers are starting to pop through there at the end. They kind of held out to the really far end here for them to start popping through, but you can see that they are starting that process here. It looks like none of my seedlings, or none of my seeds that were from a pepper that I bought at the store, are growing. I'm going to give them a little while longer, but I'm thinking that that experiment shows that it's best to just get seeds in a seed packet than trying to use the seeds in your produce. Not that it can't be done, just they don't tend to germinate as well. And I've got a 0% germination rate on those seeds. Something I am noticing as an issue for some of my seeds. But the biggest thing about hardening off your seedlings to be transplanted outside is, because we're trying to prevent the shock of them going outside into this harsh weather, is that you want to make sure that there is no potential risk of a hard frost. So you have to kind of check that, check the weather, the overnight frost forecast. Cats try to eat them. That overnight frost forecast, you have to check it and make sure there's not going to be a hard frost, or you might have to get those seedlings back inside or cover them up if you plant them too soon. We just got home from picking up the 16-foot long, 4-foot high, but it'll be wide the way that we position it, goat paneling that we're going to use for the trellising in the garden. Got to kind of figure out where we want to position, how high we want the trellis to end up being, but each of the little squares in it are 4 inches by 4 inches is the sheep and goat paneling that we were using.
These are my walnuts, carrots, corn, and my sweet peppers, and some melons. And this is the pumpkin patch. I X this one because that one's not great. And this is a Halloween one, and that's all I got for now on pumpkin patch stuffing.
We are getting the legs essentially of the raised gardens put on. And as we were putting in our screws, realized that it was starting to split the board a little bit. This 1 by 12 by 8 foot long piece of cedar. Not a 1 by 1. It's splitting it. So what we're going to do is get a drill bit and pre-drill these holes for these outer brackets.
It's a 1 by 1.
Are 1 foot tall, 8 foot long, 4 foot wide cedar raised gardens. We have legs. We have legs that we're gonna dig down into the soil. Grass is a little tall, so it's hard to tell, but we've braced the center of them. We've braced the corners. Now they're definitely not perfect workmanship. I mean, my cuts weren't perfect, but I got some help from little ones with screwing in the screws, huh? Mm-hmm. We've got 2 of them. We've got our garden soil ready to be placed into it. We've got our compost working its way, so we can add that to it also. This is not my original design plan when I drew out the garden, but sometimes when you have 2 people with thoughts and opinions in a marriage, there's compromise. So I got the trellis that I wanted, but instead of doing 2 trellises running, like if we were running them both long side by side, we're just gonna trellis 1 between them, I believe is what we're gonna end up doing. This stuff is so heavy and deceivingly heavy, and because it's so long, it's awkward to move. It like springs all over the place. So I don't know if there's like some super fancy way other than using 2 people to move it, but this is what we're gonna use for the trellis. It is 4 inches by 4 inches. It's 16 feet long. Obviously won't be that long once we trellis it between the 2 gardens. And it's 4 foot high if you use it for fencing, but it ended up being 4 feet wide because of the way that we're positioning it. All right, here's our dilemma. When constructing this, I was anticipating this being 4 foot wide. Well, that was only going to be true if I had accounted for this inch on either side, or if I had mounted these to the outside of the 4 foot board. But now it's not 4 foot, it's 3 foot 10 inches because of the inch that I've lost or so on each side, which is basically, if you try to line this panel up in that corner, the excess panel that you have that won't fit down in here. So I would either have to completely reconstruct this, which would involve removing all these brackets, recutting these boards to account for that extra inch, and mounting them on the inside. But I don't know that I really want to do that, or just, taking it apart and reconstructing it. As always, Mike had a solution. Anytime that I think that the problem is got us stopped, he always comes up with some way to make it work. So he has metal blades for a Sawzall and just went through and cut off a couple of these links so it would fit down in the inside of the box. And so we have our archway. This is what our melons, cucumbers, and beans are going to be growing up and over on. I'm really excited to get these in the ground. So the plan here is to do something like the lasagna bedding method of putting different layers. So obviously I've got my green layer. I'm going to go ahead and just leave the grass. I'm putting in some logs. Not only will that break down to be natural nutrients, but it's also going to fill some of this raised garden bed so I don't have to put as much of the soil in it. I do have manure from our goats that is composting, but it's not quite ready yet to go into the gardens, or else I would have dumped it down in here. So the plan is I'm going to lay that out at the end of the planting season to really enrich this soil for next growing season. So in the fun of planting with littles, accidentally we planted some carrots in with our corn. So as Michael did here, we're gonna peel out these carrot plants that are growing with the corn so that they're not competing for nutrients or sunlight. Some of this corn kind of got a little leggy. You can notice it's kind of flopping over, where other ones are pretty stout. We've got a kind of leggy one over there. So the plan is I'm gonna actually bury them up to probably that first leaf to give them some more stability, and eventually they should start growing some roots up the stem. Make sure it goes up to about that first leaf.
Gonna put it all the way.
Make sure it goes straight up in the soil. And then you're gonna press it gently down around it. All right, let's do the next one. Yeah, of course. It's gardening. All right, same thing.
Dig. I'm digging up to that tiny soil.
These are the starts of the plants in the soil. I got a little impatient. I don't have enough soil to fill both sides. I didn't think that I needed to fill this side first so that my taller plants, my corn, can be off on the northern side of the garden so they're not casting any kind of shadow on any of my other plants. If I had thought about that, I would have taken that soil and put it in here first so I could have just completely done one garden. But I'm going to get soil by the end of the weekend, so this will be completely filled in up to the brim basically of this soil. But we've got our corn and carrots over here. We've got lettuce, and I can't remember if these are our green beans or our cucumbers. Now these two plants look awfully pitiful because our dog ran over the starts and squashed them. They did look just like this guy here, nice and full with some true leaves going. So I'm hoping they can recover from that, but we shall see. Other things that are waiting to be transplanted are, I believe these are our melons. We've got our sunflowers, which obviously are super ready to be out in the soil, but I don't think I'm going to put them in the garden. I'm thinking I want to stick them somewhere else more decoratively. And then our sweet peppers that are just about ready to be staked out. I'm going to wait till we get a few more true leaves, and not just their seed leaves, and stake those out. But I have a ton that I don't know if it just, the soil was not good. Maybe they got choked out by some of the other plants because as the lettuce got bigger, it kind of laid over top of the other ones. Or if the seeds were just dead and didn't germinate as much as we anticipated. So we've got quite a few actually, and it could be from this fungus and stuff that was growing on it. That's a possibility. Interesting thing about this sunflower is it got roots, but it never popped out of the top. So I'm not quite sure if it grew upside down, which I don't know if that's even possible. I assume they just grow towards the sunlight. But we've got one that is kind of popping through there, but out of 6 so far, I only have a 50% germination rate on those. But I'm excited to get these in the ground. I'm gonna have so many sweet peppers. Not sure what I'm gonna do with them. We're about a month out from starting the garden outside, and things are going really well. Out of all of the starts for the corn, only one didn't make it, and honestly that's because the dog got in there and stomped on it. But we've got some corn going. Our carrots are looking really good. We've got all of our sweet peppers ready with the stakes sitting next to them so we can stake them to it. We've got our melon on this side of the trellis. We've got some sunflowers here that the kids planted at their 4-H meeting. And I didn't have room on the other side. I did transplant our raspberry bush from last year over beside the garden. The plan is to make the rows of raspberry bushes go this direction. Yeah, that one's not doing so well, is it?
So
You can take it with you if you want and save it.
Yeah.
On this side's not fully finished either. The other side, I've got lots of space that's not being filled yet. Like I've got this whole area that doesn't have anything in it. Honestly, I didn't really need this many sunflowers, but the kids planted them at their 4-H meeting. So I got them in the garden so they'll go get big. But I've got our lettuce. I'm gonna get some tomato plants from my friend. I've got beans and cucumbers starting on this side of the trellis. This guy is just taking off. Some of the tendrils are starting to pop out, and we'll start wrapping around this trellis to let it grow up and over top. I've got 3 mammoth sunflowers, and that's what they are, mammoth sunflowers that are growing, and then 2 other ones that got started later that will eventually make their way up to that height too. This is our strawberry bush from last year that was transplanted from the old garden when we did direct sow into the super rocky, not so great soil. Now we've got our raised garden beds. We need to get some more bags of soil just to finish filling this in, and where I stole for the raspberry bush. But I'm really thrilled with how it's turning out, and I can't wait to see this trellis when it's full. This is only like a day or two after the last little clip, and this little tendril is already wrapping around our trellis. Now I did kind of guide it a little bit because it was sticking just awkwardly out here. So I took it and just kind of propped it around it, but it did its thing and really wrapped around that. I think that's the only one I see right now. We've got a few that are forming on here, it looks like. That's the only one that's popped out. We've got the start of a flower here. This guy's still pretty little, and so is these. These two I'm really surprised that even live, because these are the two that Holly trampled when they were in their starter tray. So I'm just happy that they're alive. Here's where we are with these. We've got lettuce. Look how yummy that looks. Another evening has passed and we've got a little tendril sticking out. So what I'm gonna do is take it, guide it gently where we want it to go. So what it'll do is it'll start sending out these tendrils to find something to grip onto and climb onto, and as they pop out, I'll try to guide it up the trellis more. Something I noticed yesterday is on this plant, at some point there was a tendril that popped out, but it looks fried, and so does this leaf that's resting against this metal. So I'm wondering if there's some pros and cons to using this metal for the arch if it gets too hot. I wonder if it's burning the leaves that are touching it. Doesn't seem to be that case with any of the other plants that are resting against it, so I'm not sure what was going on with that. And even the true leaves, I mean, those are just the seed leaves, so the true leaves seem to be fine. So I'm in the garden this morning. I'm watering it a little bit later than I normally like to. I like to get it watered before the sun crests over those trees, just so that it has a time to soak in the moisture into the roots without it having a chance to evaporate out. But we got a late start today. It's 10:30. Still not the heat of the day, so we should be fine with that. But I wanted to do another update. It is June 17th on what the garden's looking like today. I'm really thrilled with how the cucumbers are coming along. I've got this one that's just being an overachiever. He's got all these nice little tendrils attaching. Keeps wanting to reach out of the archway trellis and get a hold of this chicken wire that we put around to keep the animals out of it. It's already attached itself to it one time, and I had to unwrap the tendrils and wrap them back to this. So you just do that really gently, just unwrap it and wrap them back on. So I'm having to redirect this every so often, very gently, so I don't break any of the tendrils or the stalk or anything. That way it can keep going up where I want it to go up. I've got a couple more cucumbers that are doing really well, a few that we did some late planting. Now these are ever-bearing cucumbers, so these ones are going to continually give us cucumbers as we harvest them, but I had some empty space in the garden and wanted to see what it would do if I planted them a little bit closer, since they are growing vertically. I've got some different beans that are going on right here, so they're doing pretty good. On this side, we've got our garden variety of different leaf lettuces. These are not head lettuces, so they're not going to come to a head like iceberg would. These ones we're actually going to, I'm going to cook out today for Father's Day, so I'm going to pluck some of these leaves here shortly and show you how to do that, so we can have them on our burgers. We've got a couple of tomato plants. That one's not looking so hot. Really none of them are doing fantastic. I think they just got a late start to the year. We've got a couple of strawberry bushes. This one is from last year. We've got newer ones on each side. Our sunflowers, we've got a couple here that were planted later. Our 3 originals that we planted when we did our first seed start. Our mammoth sunflowers are doing really, really good here. On the other side of the garden, the melon's not impressing me yet, but maybe they just harvest later. I have to look at that one a little bit more closely, but I've got 4 different cantaloupe plants. And then I've got watermelon that we got from the store. That's the size it was when we got it just a little bit ago. We've got some more sunflowers that the kids planted at their 4-H meeting, a jalapeno plant. We've got sweet peppers that look a little sad here. We've got our carrots that are doing just fantastic here. I'm thrilled with the way that they look. We've got some that we planted about a week and a half ago that are starting to pop through the soil here, just so we can harvest them a little bit later in the season too. And then we have our corn, and the idea is knee-high by 4th of July, and we're definitely right on track for that. Actually, already surpassed that if I was standing in the garden with it. Stay tuned for more videos on the update of the garden and everything else that's happening here on the homestead.